Jamelle, thanks so much for joining the show. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm great. We really appreciate you stopping by. I know you're a busy guy, former coach in the NBA, assistant coach in the NBA. Currently taking a hiatus. Oh my gosh, hiatus from coaching. You and your father, former Pacers head coach Nate McMillan, and now assistant with the Hawks, have made some career adjustments. How has that been for you and your family?
It's been good, man. It's part of it. For my own situation, I understand that I had a great run here in New Orleans. It was really cool with all these people here. The organization really treated me well, and so new regime came in. It was a switch, and it's allowed me to hang out with my kid. It's been a really cool deal being with him, especially during the crazy COVID times and being at home and everything and watching him his first now 7 months here growing up and everything. And Pops is trying to figure it out in the second, third, fourth seat, wherever he is on Atlanta's roster, but also good for him. It's a situation where he felt he did what he could do in Indiana, had a great run there, and really respects and appreciates, my family respects and appreciates all that Indiana did for us and everything. And it was a good deal for him, but now taking a step back and trying to see what I do and trying to take on my role and touch people in different ways. It is all great for your career. And so he's loving it. Atlanta's been a good city to him so far, and I'm loving it being at home and with my kid and everything. So it's been cool.
Sure. Good stuff to hear. And, we were talking before we went on, started recording, and I had mentioned that I'm from Iowa and you coached at Drake.
Yeah.
I actually have a connection to Indianapolis too. I lived there for about 4 months. So
Okay.
small
Yeah.
world.
Nice.
Got to live there, pre-pandemic and see some
Right.
Pacers games. So very cool. So talking Pelicans, coming off a 5-game skid there, lost 5 games in a row. They bounced back last night with the win over the Kings. After those losses, you did mention that you got to see a bit of the game last night. Did you see anything that would have encouraged you coming off this win versus the Kings to sort of build off of into these 2 games against the Jazz?
Yeah, it's this season's been tough on everybody, especially a team that's got so many moving parts, right? Like, David Griffin and his staff, and they've got a bunch of new people, an entirely new, for the most part, coaching staff, and then a lot of different roster changes. And so lack of preparation in the preseason, just kind of throwing things together kind of on the fly and everything like they had to do in the bubble. And now to this season, you see it all over the league. Guys are just trying to find an identity for themselves and collectively with the group. And so the last, 5 losses and really the whole season, there's something different to me that in the games I've seen every night, right? And, you see different lineups. You've seen a couple injuries here and there. I think the biggest thing that they have done or needed to do and it's really hard, is defensively stripping everything down to the core, all the way back to just a defensive stance. You'd be surprised how many guys at this level don't know how to do that. And mainly because it doesn't get you paid very much. But, that's the first step, is being able to trust on the defensive end from the bare base fundamentals. And so that takes time, and it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of repetition and practice. And so when you have that scenario, everybody tends to focus on the offensive end and everything, and they're trying to build it piece by piece. I know Stan has come in, and I've heard they've had really long practices and meetings and all that kind of stuff, just trying to set a foundation for this basketball group, for the foundation of this basketball group anyway, and move forward from there and establish themselves. And so it's going to be a lot of up and down, all for this season as well. I know Pelican fans are struggling with the word patience a little bit, but this is one of those projects, man. It really is. And so, it was good to see them last night bounce back after a really rough week. I mean, being on the road with all the restrictions that the league has put on everybody and having to stay in hotels and can't leave and all that, it's tough, especially for a young group. So, going into the next couple games, discipline is going to be the thing. You know, with Utah, you have to be a disciplined basketball team, or it's going to be a long, long night, and you have to be a high level communication team. That is one area that we struggled in last year. And looking on the floor from very far away on TV, that's what I see is a very quiet group of guys, good guys, but a very quiet group of guys. And so there's a lot of things, gray areas that seem to be lost in translation there. And, you know, that'll be figured out depending on who they have on the floor. But there's got to be some assertive voices out there to keep everybody together. And that'll come as they build and be able to trust the system.
For sure. And that's been a long-standing thing with this team from last year into this year, communication, especially defensively. Not necessarily just you, but what did you do as a staff collectively last year when it came to communication? How do you get that out of guys, especially that are known for not necessarily being super vocal, like Brandon Ingram, like Jrue Holiday? What did you guys do as a staff?
You, it's tough. You got to go get guys who are the Draymonds and the, you know, the Tony Allens of the world, you know, those guys that set the defensive identity. I call them identity guys, and all the good teams have them. They really do. You know, they anchor everything, and everything kind of funnels through them, and they go. You know, and with young guys who are trying to identify what they want to be in the league, or what they think they should be or hope to be as they go through their process, you know, a lot of times that's why they don't, or they don't want to be wrong, or they're afraid to have backlash because maybe they're not performing a certain way on a certain night and everything else. Drew Brees had a rough night last night, right? But he's still one of the best leaders in all of sports. It's not close, you know. So you can do both. You're going to have the off nights and everything. But again, once they are able to identify where they can be successful within the framework of what Stan and his staff is trying to do, I think that helps. And then as a staff, clarity is important. I think absolutes are important. When you just allow guys to kind of read it or kind of make it up on their own, you know, they're going to fill that space in with fight or flight mode, right? What do they resort back to? What do they know? Instead of, you know, this is what it is, do A or B, and some nights call for C, but we really want to get A and B down for tonight. And if you're able to tell them one-on-one, you know, a lot of one-on-one conversations, exactly, look, I need you to do this and this, that's it. I need you to do this tonight. I don't care about anything else, just this. That builds the confidence for those guys in areas that they are not comfortable. Some of them don't need confidence in other areas, like jacking up shots, right? That's everybody has the confidence for that. But sure, setting absolutes is huge for the staff. And I'm sure that's Stan and his staff's the route that they're going. You know, just really telling those guys exactly what is expected and demanded this way, and that's it. And then guys are all on the same page and they know.
Sure. So two things that we talked about a lot last year and then this year as well, the two comms, communication and composure, right? So coming down late into games, Pels would just kind of squander a lead, or these veteran-led teams would overcome a late lead by the Pelicans. Last night, what we saw from a team, or from the Pelicans against a team that maybe isn't veteran-led or isn't so talented, especially on the defensive end of the floor, is the Kings, but the Pels kept their composure. They fought off a comeback attempt by the Kings in the third quarter as well. They looked like they'd been there before. Shots weren't being forced. They continued to play mature basketball. But what I personally would have liked to see more of is getting the ball to Zion when he has those types of advantages. I mean, he was 13 of 15 last night from the field, 31 points. You've got to expose that all night, right? Are you looking at your point guards? Or are you looking at your team as a whole to try to expose that, rather than just saying Zion, figure it out, right?
Yeah. You know, it comes with basketball IQ. It's something that, you know, guys really, especially guards in this league, can really manipulate the game in a ton of different ways. And understanding how to get Zion those opportunities in the spots that he likes them I think that's one thing that Zion's got to establish is his main 2 or 3 spots on the floor where he wants to operate. When like Brandon Ingram, same thing. And then once they get the ball in those areas, then they can do what they do. And they're at a high level, both of those guys, right? So it's on Nikhil, it's on Bledsoe, it's on Lonzo Ball, it's on those guys to understand those spots and how to work to get to those spots throughout the course of a game and when those opportunities are necessary. There are some times in a game where those two guys, nothing else matters but those two guys at certain points in the game, right? And then there's certain possessions where nobody should shoot this basketball besides Zion or Brandon Ingram, or we need to get in the bonus. So Zion's got to have the ball and get us to the free throw line where we can get easy baskets because our defense is not generating easy buckets right now until we figure out what we're doing on that end of the floor and we can get out in transition. So Zion is a big time talent, obviously. Plays inside the 3-point line, got to move him around a lot, but he is a force. And so a force like that, you really just have to keep it simple. I mean, there's not much to do. I mean, he took one jab, one bounce, and elevated from the dots last night, and it was like the most beautiful thing you've seen. But, those type things, where are his spots on the floor where he likes to operate, and how do we get him the ball there throughout the course of a game without forcing it in situations that get us in trouble and we get stagnant, right? So just got to allow the game to work for you. The guards got to allow the game to work for them, but they also have to understand how to manipulate that game according to what Stan calls and everything, just to understand where they are in the game and how they can get efficient baskets.
What I've been seeing a lot of, especially when it comes late, especially with Lonzo, is chucking up shots. Unfortunately, not getting the ball to Brandon, not getting the ball to Zion for easier buckets, running that pick and roll with Brandon Ingram and Steven. So definitely something that should be exposed, that can be learned by Lonzo, and hopefully will be and should be. So we'll see what comes of that. But a couple things, these next 2 games coming up, we know that a lot of the games last year, the 2 games especially, 3 games I should say, against the Jazz later in the second half of the season were close with Utah, even though they're a perennial playoff team. They're a successful basketball team, and the Pelicans haven't necessarily been known for that in the last few years. Was there something about last season's matchup with the Jazz that stuck out to you about being able to compete so closely with such a talented team?
Yeah, I think the first time we played them, we got blown out. I mean, it was bad. 30 or somewhere. Right? Yeah. So, and it was awesome for our team that happened. And from a defensive standpoint, working with Coach Bizdelic, it was phenomenal because they covered a lot of different areas, especially in the pick and roll game, finding guys in the corner, finding guys. I mean, the extra pass, swing, all that stuff for threes. It was like textbook basketball for foundational teaching on that end of the floor. And so we were able to use that game. I specifically, remember that, to really shape drills and all that kind of stuff for what we wanted to do throughout the year and try to get accomplished throughout the year. And so knowing that with those guys, Donovan, first things first is you got to own the challenge of the Donovan Mitchell, the Mike Conley. You just got to sit down and own it. That's the first thing. When you get into their concepts in basketball, as far as coming off single side tags and all that kind of stuff, which are really difficult to guard, it's really going to be a discipline test for this team. If you're able to be in your positions early, you're going to have to do your work early against this group in Utah, and be in your position early so that you can put yourself at somewhat of an advantage in the second and third pass of their offense, position wise, and then covering for each other is going to be big. Another big part of this group is you're going to have to run them. It's going to have to be a little bit faster pace, I think, than the Pelicans have wanted to play this year, just to get easy buckets, especially early in the clock at an early offense. Get those outlets out to the 28-foot hash and get the ball across half court. It's not a run and gun per se, because I don't think that ever works, running and gunning up shots, but you can play fast with pace. And I think that's big for this group. Another thing that I think would help them is cutting. Very, very few times throughout the course of a game do you see easy backdoor cuts or meaningful cuts. If guys, have an advantage, DHO situation, guy overplays backdoor, hit him, and then find a guy backside for a three. Those type of plays are going to be big with a team like Utah because they obviously defend themselves in practice and everything. So they are a disciplined defensive group. And then Gobert at the rim is a monster, as we all know. And so finding the corners is going to be big. Lots of cutting, but getting into their stuff a little bit earlier. And that starts on defense. Rebounding the ball, limiting second chance opportunities, and getting the ball up the floor.
All good points. And in terms of pace, this team is very different than they were last year. How do you make that transition to, I mean, with the talent on this team, you'd think that would be an emphasis. Obviously, the emphasis for SVG has been defense. And it's done pretty well. He's done pretty well. Not so much the last few games, letting up a lot of points to the Kings last night, especially to De'Aaron Fox. But how do you make that transition in a game where you think that's going to be of importance? I mean, obviously, we're 12 games into the season. He's been emphasizing defense. He's been emphasizing trying to teach these guys things. But how do you make that shift against a team that you almost have to make in order to win? I mean, in one game flip, right?
Yeah, it's the game changes, per half really, in every night. You go into halftime and you got a situation where you came into the game one way, some things are going well, some things aren't, and things change throughout the entire course per timeout sometimes, depending on the night. And so I think with Coach Van Gundy, what he's doing, like you mentioned, he's really emphasizing defense. They may not even address the offensive end in this case, because this is a winning now, whatever, that's a bonus. We got to set what we are doing on the defensive end of the floor. And if we can reach these milestones on defense, I am completely assuming this is just me speaking out loud, right? If we could find our defensive identity, what we're about, and how we can figure it out on that end, we can always stay in games. We can make a game ugly if we are able to dig in on that end of the floor. And then we got to figure out the other parts on the other end, how to close games later. But the main thing is we've got to be in games, hang around, a lot like Indiana was a few years ago. Those guys, it was an ugly game. They were like the Steelers of the NBA. There's always going to be some ugly, grinded out game, right? And I think that's Stan being a little bit older school. That's the grit and grind part of things that he's looking for and trying to establish there. And so, the big part of the guard play, the guards have to understand their matchup and their opponent, and then they are going to have to take some of that on themselves. Like Rondo a few years ago was the master of this. It never went how we thought it was going to go. He was always out there making stuff up. And now Rondo's a Hall of Famer, because he understands how some nights it's going to be that way and some nights we're going to have to do other things. And so it's a game where, getting up and down the floor is that, but don't sabotage what you're trying to do, what you've done since training camp day one. Stick to your principles and what you know. Deeper outlets is not something that sacrifices what you're trying to do, right? Zion pushing off the bounce is not something that I'm sure they encourage that. If he rebounds the ball and just pushes, that is gold for them. But the other guys got to get out and run. They got to go. Get down the floor, get to the corner, space the floor, flatten the defense, and then get into whatever you're going to get into. So it's just little subtle things like that can increase the pace without just saying, the advance pass is another one. Hey, get off the ball. outlet the ball to Brandon, throw the thing up, just get the ball up to whoever, and then get it back and then play. A little bit more of that, could also help the pace. So it's not huge changes, but understanding what we're trying to do and then add little things like that and to get the thing going and flowing a little bit better so those guys can get some easy ones early, especially early in the game.
We've seen Brandon make some of those passes that I don't remember seeing much last year, those advanced passes. Seems like he's been taking notes from guys like Lonzo, guys like even on the defensive end, like Steven Adams. His rotations have been better. He's putting a body on people. And hopefully that trend continues. Hopefully we see some more of those advanced passes tomorrow night. Tomorrow night? Thursday night? I don't remember. They play the Jazz soon.
Sure.
So excited to see that. And one player that we have yet to talk about today on the pod is Nikhil Alexander-Walker. I know you tweeted about him fairly recently, and much like the rest of Pelicans Twitter did after he scored that 37 points against the Clippers. And in that tweet, you had mentioned that he's a guy who wants to win, who wants to get better at basketball. He's not in the NBA for the lifestyle. Did you see something like this coming from Nod? Did you see the potential last year when you got to work with him?
Yes. Yeah, the 37 points it was whatever to me, because the kid, he has the tools. He has it, and spending every day with him last season, was fortunate to really connect with him. Nikhil's biggest issue is himself. He wants to be a 5-time All-Star today. He wants to start and have a Steve Nash career tomorrow. Like most young guys, they want everything now, and it's my biggest message to him last year was, always show the face that your opponents and your teammates need to see, because he always, when he makes a mistake, he's really down on himself, like he caves, and it was something that would take him out. And that's why I also tweeted, and I thought it'd be interesting to see him the next game when the shot wasn't there, or if Bledsoe came back, if Lonzo came back and those opportunities weren't there, or Zion came back, what else was he going to do in the game to give him the same joy that you saw in that game, that got everybody tweeting about him, that got the fan base behind him and now demanding more minutes for him? Yeah. Like everybody got on his bandwagon that night. For me, it was an everyday thing. I'd seen the guy rep after rep last year, even sometimes too long, get out of the gym because you're now being counterproductive. But that's him. Buddy Hield was the same way when we had him his rookie year. Nikhil is a guy, basketball is it. This is the game. This is me. This is where I belong. And he's going to be around a long time. He's going to be a good player, a very good player for a long time. Mm-hmm. The main thing about him is he's got to figure out what he is. And using him was tricky because point guard wide, he's not a point guard. He's a shooter. He's a shooting guard. His best tool that he has is catch and shoot. With nobody giving him catch and shoot opportunities, or with him feeling that he has to do so much from the point guard position, that kind of takes him out of some of what he likes to do. But because the other night he just played the game, we saw the result of what could happen. And, moving forward, he's a guy who's got to learn how to pass effectively because he can. He's left-handed. He's not right-handed. He goes left every time, and he's much more effective going left. And so how do you manipulate the game or understand where the opportunities are to get in the paint with my left hand and find guys? Who am I going to get a shot? How am I going to get Josh Hart a wide open three? How am I going to find Steven Adams in the short roll? How am I going to use this guy for a DHO situation because the defense is going under, and that gives me enough space because I don't need much to get a shot off. His is about the IQ part of the game now. It's not about the talent in the 37 points. He can score with the best of them. That's his thing. So right now I think he's averaging I thought I saw 1.8 assists or something like that, and 2 rebounds. What else are you doing on the floor besides trying to score? In that game, he shot they were what, down 6 with a minute left, and he went for 40, right? Bad possession. That's the IQ part of the game, the growth that he's got to see. And it will come. It will come. But I'm very proud of the kid. I really am. He's one of the guys in my 9-10 years working in this thing that I really, really root for. He's one of the guys that I understand is going to make a lot of money in this league and is going to be around a long time, and fans are really going to be behind him for a long time because of his everyday activity in the gym as well as out of the gym, on his phone or whatever. He's always looking at the game. And so we got a special one here in New Orleans, with that kid, and it'll be cool to see him the rest of this season build from that 37 and try to figure out the game in other areas.
Averaging 1.9 assists and 1.8 rebounds. So very close on the guesstimation there.
Low. Very low.
So a lot of the same sentiment from you there that we heard from Steven Adams, that we've heard from Stan Van Gundy, Brandon Ingram as well. Brandon has been a constant reminder in media sessions saying that he's just not going to get down on himself. He's just got to stay positive, move on to the next possession. And that's what we see. That's what we see from him. And that's what we saw from him against the Clippers as well, going 5 of 8 from deep as well. I think he 12 of 15 or something like that from the field. So very impressive night from him against the Clippers. Now the question begs itself. This guard position for the Pelicans, it's just crowded. There's a lot of guards on this team. You got you got Lonzo, Kyra Lewis, Eric Bledsoe, JJ Redick, who's not going to be handling the ball anytime soon, but he is a shooting guard. So it's stacked. Now, what do you do when Lonzo comes back? What do you expect this team to do? Is Eric still a starter? Do you bring him off the bench? Is Lonzo a starter still? What would you do if you were the head coach? Put yourself in that position for the New Orleans Pelicans. Where do you go from here? I mean, Lonzo's going to be fine. Obviously, he'll be back soon. But Na's been playing super well. Kyra just got a bunch of minutes last night. Eric Bledsoe's Eric Bledsoe. What do you do?
I think, I don't know what Lonzo's situation is, his injury or whatever, when he'll be back. I think if you started one way, and because it's so early, you go back to how you started, right? If he comes back and you slowly find more minutes within the roster for a Nikhil or a guy who's playing well. Like you said, the log jam, this is one of the most difficult situations we have as coaches in the NBA in a lot of scenarios. And there's a few teams dealing with this right now. Injuries are almost a blessing. That sounds weird, but sometimes they are, just because it smooths things out a little bit and everything. But, I just think that my communication with Nikhil would be, listen, you did this, this, and this, right? Well, I need you to understand that we as a team need you good in this area and this area. And then I evaluate him in those areas within maybe the short minutes or the kind of extended minutes that he'll get throughout the next week or two in these games, and see how he does in those areas, because those are going to be, I guess he scored 37. There's going to be some nights where that's going to be nice, but they still lost, so with Zion back, with Bledsoe in there, I need you to do this and this. Are you doing that effectively? And then if he is, then we got to look to make a change if it's benefiting us in a positive direction. If a guy like Brandon Ingram, which these guys do that, or approve of that move or approve of that scenario, if Zion is somehow being more efficient than he already is, because the guy is like unreal with that in that category. And and I see the flow of what I'm trying to do on defense. Defensively, do you have the voice and do you have the anchor that's going to give the leadership qualities I need on the floor? Or are you helping out? How are you helping out a teammate? Like you mentioned, Brandon Ingram, his help defense tremendously better. But I think it's become an interest now that he got paid. And so now his next step is defense and closing basketball games. That's what he's got to become a killer the last 5 minutes of the game. I can't let my team lose, right? And so Nikhil, it's the same thing. Everybody's role is going to shift constantly with a group like this. It's a tough job. It really is. Stan has a really tough job. It's hard. And I don't think there's really a right answer besides what has Stan sat down with David Griffin and Trajan Langdon and discussed were the goals for this year, and what are they trying to accomplish? And if Nikhil is the better option, and I don't know what those goals are, by the way, I have no idea what that is. If Nikhil or Bledsoe or whoever is the better option, then we shift in that direction. But then we got to tell Lonzo exactly what is expected of him, or we got to tell Bledsoe exactly what's expected of him if we're going to move Kira into that spot. Now your role has changed. What do you need in order to get back, right? So it's a constant cycle of extreme communication. And we'll see. Young players like the Kiras and the Nikhils of the world, if winning's on your radar, then playing those guys heavy minutes probably isn't in your best interest right now, just because they're trying to figure it out and have done pretty well this year, considering. So I just think it really depends on what the goals are between coaching staff, front office, and the organization, what they're trying to put together this season. And I don't know if playoffs is something that they've talked about, or if it's just like, hey, this is a wash year. We'll get some of these contracts out of here. We'll roll with these guys next year. We just want to see them get to this point and this point so we can put it together this way next season. That could be the case. That could be the conversation. So we'll see how it goes. And I think, Stan's been around the block, man, a long time. And he's got a lot of stuff in his toolbox that he'll figure it out with those guys. And I think the biggest thing he has going for him is he has a very high character group to work with. These are great guys. And I'm assuming Steven Adams, from what I know, is an awesome human being. Eric Bledsoe, I'm sure, looking at him, cool guy. Everything I've heard from him, really cool, nice guy. And talking to some of the guys there. So, he has good guys that aren't going to cause too many issues in that regard. And so we'll see when they come off the road. They got to finish up on the road. It's a beast to be out there that long and come back at home. And I think I would make that change. If I was going to make a change, I would do it at home rather than on the road, and just finish up this road trip and see what they have and evaluate from there.
Provide some consistency, especially for the young guys on the roster.
For sure. I don't think you just cast out a guy because he's hurt, especially when he's been a high profile part of what you've been doing. And depending on what you're looking for. So when Lonzo comes back, I think he'll be the guy, and we'll see the same moving forward with him and Bledsoe and Brandon and those guys. Hopefully none of those guys get injured and everything. And then we will see, but they may come to a point where Stan says, listen, hey, Nikhil, you're the guy, and we're just rolling that way. He could do that. And who knows how that will look, but we'll see. We'll see when they come back, how they finish up the road trip with these two games. I really do think they could at least split it with this group against Utah, and catch them on an off night, hopefully.
Yeah.
But like Utah is a monster, man. They're a big time team. So making a change right now like that just probably wouldn't work in your favor. Just gotta roll with it, see what you got when they come back, and allow these guys to grow together, because it is new for everybody. That's hard to deal with, especially for young guys, especially young point guards.
Sure. And one of the main issues that the Pels have run into as of late, and I think that would have helped having Lonzo last night, despite the fact that I have been a proponent of playing Nam, or I have been a proponent of playing Kyra Lewis. I loved the Kyra pick at 13. What I was told by my draft guy, I don't know if you're familiar with Babcock Hoops, Derek Murray from Babcock Hoops told me that if Kyra had Kentucky across his chest instead of Alabama, he would have been a consensus top 5 pick. And I love that. I love Kyra. I love what Stan said about him last night. I think that pick was awesome. So clearly I'm a proponent of Kyra Lewis, but Lonzo's defense was greatly missed last night. De'Aaron Fox went for, I believe, 43 career high. So the Pels are lacking in perimeter defense in a lot of ways, and not having Lonzo hurt last night. Now, speaking of perimeter defense, we talked about it before we started recording, of course. Not only are the Pelicans allowing the most three-pointers of any team in the NBA at 15.8 per game, the Pelicans are also 26th in three-point percentage at 33.4% this season. So the perimeter has been a struggle. They're allowing them and they're not making them. And in today's NBA, that's not the greatest sign. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the book Sprawl Ball by Kurt Goldsberry, but I'm currently reading that. And I posted something yesterday on Twitter about how the importance of the three has just continued to expand. And that's just common knowledge, right? In covering the NBA. But this is a 3-point shooters league. That's what we're getting at. Games are won and lost at the 3-point line. What does this team need to do, man? These are very glaring issues. I know you worked with the guards. What's going to be the difference going forward? How do they adjust to this? How do they start making shots? Is it working with Fred Vincent? What is it?
Getting easier ones. You know, that's the biggest thing I see with this team is everything is so hard. And I talked about touching the paint before, but I'm looking at this team, they're 24th in assists in the league. So they don't share the ball that much, or if they do, it's not to gain some sort of advantage. And they turn the ball over at a really high rate. So they're 26th in turnovers, and they're 22nd in fast break points. So that's a recipe of just it's hard. It's really hard. Your defense is not generating points. But conversely, opponents are scoring really high off their turnovers. So points off turnovers, the Pelicans, I think, are 25th. And they're 20th in opponent fast break points. So they're giving up a lot of easy ones. And because they turn the ball over, that's where a lot of those threes are coming as well in transition, right? Trying to get back, defending live ball turnovers. You just can't do it. Can't do it. It's a recipe for an L every night. But the biggest thing is, the assist thing is concerning because, like I mentioned, everybody wants Nikhil to play. He averages 1.8, 1.9. That's not moving the needle on most nights because most nights he won't have 37, right? And so how is Lonzo getting in the paint and kicking backside? One thing that we emphasized last year a lot was drive and kick. Get to the paint, get off it early, driving closeouts, and then making the play for the next guy, generally to the weak side corner. That was huge in Coach Finch's whole philosophy of what we were trying to do. Get the ball up early, make the first easy entry pass, and then drive closeouts from there and touch the paint and find Brandon Ingram's attempts are way too hard. Like a lot of the threes that the Pelicans take are contested. They're heavily contested shots. And a lot of it's due to stagnant. They're just standing there. Cutting will help that. Backdoor cut, bang, one to the back, weak side. Something like everything is pick and roll off the dribble, spin between the legs, step back, fade. It's just hard basketball to play. And I think that goes to, again, IQ. It's an IQ thing of a young group that everything they've done up until this point to make it up here is me, and go get 37, right? And now when you've got, and then all the player development work generally is by yourself, a 1-on-0 with some workout guy. And very rarely do you do the situational get and work with a teammate. using the DHO scenarios with the big and having clean DHO exchanges or dribble pitch exchanges to create advantages and get in the paint, and then fire backside and find those open guys. And then the next guy go, and everything is like a 1-2 pass offense. It's hard. It's hard to generate threes that way. But on the defensive end, somebody's got to keep somebody in front of them. I mean, that's just, at this point, that's just the bare, somebody keeps somebody in front of you. Pickup points got to be higher. Pick up 94 feet. Lonzo, get up and turn the guy 3 times before he initiates the offense. Bledsoe, get up. He's got to turn 3 times. Just so you're putting some pressure, eat the clock a little bit, not going for a steal. You're just showing I'm here. A lot of times when I watch the Pelicans on defense, like I don't feel that they're in the gym. I don't, and a lot of that's due to communication, and they're just flat, dead, not guys are standing straight up and down, all that kind of stuff that you have with a young group. That's just part of it. This is the patience part. This is the process part. Everybody loves the Nikhils and the Kiras and all that, but they don't like the process that those guys have to go through, that the Brandon Ingrams have to go through to be able to close games and all that sort of thing. So keep somebody in front. I think the one thing I did see, like you said, they are helping a lot more. They are getting over in their rotations. The thing is, sometimes it's 2 and 3 guys, so it's overhelp. Now you're exposed on the weak side. It's a run and close out, run off the line game. Guys are too good at this level, especially now because everybody practices the 3. So again, that's going to come. Defending the 3-point line is going to come once they understand their rotations and they're comfortable with them, when they understand what guys are good at defensively. It's a defensive IQ as well as an offensive IQ. But it's hard to defend the 3-point line if you don't know how to create opportunities on the 3-point line on the other end. So that's why Stan, is breaking down the defense first, because if we understand how teams are getting threes against us and we understand how to stop it, we can create them a lot better on the other end, because you'll know what to look for. You'll know the reads and the gaps guys are playing and how you can, maneuver around those situations. And so it's just teaching the IQ of the game first, but they will get better in that area. I think Stan will take care of that. It's just everything is so hard on offense because everything's pound right now.
Sure. And by the sounds of it, the places that they're struggling is because they're focusing so much on defense. And I kind of hit it a little bit earlier, but you just got to learn defense before you can do these other things. And it, like you said, I mean, what you just said, the offense will get easier once you start to figure out the defense. And I mean, like JJ Redick, who's a top 15 shooter of all time, top 20 shooter of all time, whatever you want to call him. I mean, he's getting tough shots because these guys just don't understand the offense. Right. Can you elaborate on that for us a little bit?
Yeah, JJ's unbelievable, man. Like last year being with him, he was one of my favorite guys that I've been a part of, just in his process of his pregame routine, his shooting routine in the gym. He understands where his opportunities come, what he's comfortable doing. Now, he hits some crazy stuff all the time just because he's high level, been doing it a long time. He's an old guy now, but he, it goes to guys understanding where the spots on the floor that he likes to shoot. JJ is a guy who likes coming to his right, inside planning and shooting, right? I'm sure they know that on the team. Now, where are you screening? How are you screening? How are your screening angles to get a guy like that open? How are you creating spaces? Are you sprinting into those? What are they doing defensively to take him out of his opportunities because he is such a threat? And how can we play off that in order to help him out to get an easy one? That sort of thing comes with the more veteran guards, the Chris Pauls of the world, who are able to set up that kind of stuff. And the game has slowed down for them. Right now, the game is really fast for Kira. It's still really fast for Jackson Hayes. It's still really fast for Nikhil Alexander-Walker. Those guys, once they slow down, they'll understand how to use a guy like JJ. But JJ, he figured it out last year. It was very, very impressive how he did. And Stan understands JJ. He started with him and has gone through the process. I'm sure he's got a lot in his arsenal for that guy to be successful. It's just you got to get the other guys on the same page with that. And then minutes wise, once you figure out the lineups and understand what you have in the Nikhils and the Bledsoes and Lonzo, then you can start like really buckling down on somebody like JJ, because Lonzo's able to do this, I can get JJ something over here or whatever the case may be. Again, everybody's new. Stan's new, his staff's new. Lonzo's trying to figure it out. JJ's trying to figure it out again with Stan, so a lot of moving parts, a ton of them. But JJ, he's a pro's pro, man. He's the ultimate professional. Love the guy to death. He'll be okay. He'll be fine.
I don't know JJ at all personally, but I love his podcast. So he is my guy for sure.
There you go.
So it's great to hear that he's a good dude with the team as well.
Yeah.
Now to go big picture a little bit, they are 5-7 after last year starting 6-22. So how upset can you really be, right? So for the team as a whole, are there any major differences you see? I know you said you've been watching a lot of the NBA collectively. You've been following the team a little bit too, because you are connected to these guys. From an outsider's perspective now, but also having an inside perspective too, are there any major differences you see with this team right off the bat? Like comparatively to last year, it's just like boom, hops off the screen to you.
Not far as obviously the roster is very different, but there aren't many changes, right? Like Steven Adams, big time defender. Derek Favors, big time defender, right? Zion is Zion. He's just healthy now. So hopefully he stays that way. And please do, Zion, do everything you need to do to stay healthy, because this league needs you to stay healthy. And the biggest thing is really the lack of movement and ball movement, just because of the sheer difference of style of play. It's a lot more sets, playing off the elbows. You're looping Brandon Ingram out, getting him the ball in the wing, and then he's got to create and all that kind of stuff, compared to just the utter randomness that we played with. Hit, cut through, move, next guy, come up. There's a lot of conceptual movement that we did just to get guys off the ball and try to force the ball to move, right? And then obviously defensively, we needed to get out in transition. We needed easy buckets in transition. We really forced trying to get to the paint and get in the bonus, get free throws, which I think the Pelicans are 4th in the league in free throws attempted per game. So they are getting to the free throw line. A lot of that Zion, teams don't have a choice because the guy is such a force. But that's the biggest thing, is just, it's a totally different style of play. And then the type of shots we wanted really 12-ish or less mid-range jump shots. That was Coach Finch's deal last year. Everything needed to be a 3. So
Analytics, man.
Yeah, it's awful. That's a different story. But that's the biggest thing, is that, and getting up and down the basketball floor. Get up and down the basketball floor. We just got to get up and down. But we did. 6-22 was miserable. A lot of that was due to, because you play that way, there's a lot more. We were a high turnover team. We were one of the worst when you do that. And so getting off the ball, you really got to be smart about it and have passers as well that can make plays, create plays for different people. This team is really relying on 1 or 2 guys right now, and everything is just off the bounce. It's really tough in that regard. When they get in there, we tried to make a lot of home run plays last year. There's a lot of swinging for the fence, and everything now is a lot more solid, conservative. Let's dictate and control the flow of this game, and let's work on our discipline so that we are more disciplined than the other team. That's what I see from this group, is a lot more discipline than the previous regime. So I don't think there is work both ways, in my opinion, with teams around the league. I think Toronto is more of a disciplined group. Golden State was a lot more disciplined. The Lakers were all over the place and they won, and they were at a high level. So it works both ways, man. It's just the personnel that you have here now has a little bit more experience, I think, with far as Bledsoe being with Milwaukee and playing really meaningful basketball, trying to get to the finals and all that kind of stuff. Steven Adams played really meaningful basketball in OKC's way back with the Durants and the Westbrooks and all those guys. So he's seen high-level guys in their process. Bledsoe's seen high-level guys in Giannis and Middleton and their process. JJ has been a part of it and is one of those guys. So that's, I think, a big thing that they have now that's a benefit compared to last year, is being able to see that, and now it's just building off of it.
You mentioned discipline there being a big thing, and one player that we have seen a lot more discipline from in these last few games is Jackson Hayes. I mean, everybody in the first 5 games was just like, he's unplayable, but wow. Stan Van Gundy and that staff has done a lot for him. What have you noticed? What has stuck out to you about his play?
Another young guy who wants it all now, right? He was highlight, sideshow Jacks or whatever he was last year, hair all over the place. He's a walking highlight, right? But, Jackson was a guy for me that didn't understand how good he could actually be. And it seems to me that now that a second group is probably telling him the same things, he's really owning it. And it's his process is a little bit different. Yeah, he was getting slammed from everybody. But again, it was new for him, and I think he went through the summer of this COVID period, or since the bubble, and thought things would be a certain way or a different way, or felt that he had got to a point that, he could contribute in different ways. And he is capable of doing a lot of things that even he doesn't understand that he can do. I mean, I think the biggest one is switch. He is a 7-footer that's capable of switching. He can move his feet when he wants to. All he has to do is trust him, and he's got the length, right? So that's valuable to have. And again, I think Stan is a perfect guy for him, to put him in a box just to get him, doing a certain here and here. We need you here and here. We need you to really work on your pick and roll defensive position. We need you to be up in the pick and roll, but we can't allow, without being in foul trouble. He was a fouling machine last year, and he really struggled with verticality last year. As high as he could jump, because he was always late. Now you see him, he's early to spots in certain situations. He's in a stance, another guy that never played in a stance. You all of a sudden, a lot of situations, see him in a stance, and he could be the Gobert-ish type with his athleticism and the way he jumps. He has the length. Now, Gobert's IQ is off the charts, so there's a lot to be desired there. But as far as being able to move and be in his position, he has that ability to move. A lot of guys his size just can't do it. Their feet just don't cooperate. So his development, he's got a long way to go, but he's very, very positive spot on the roster. And, if he's a guy that can come in off the bench and hold fort as a guy anchoring your defense, and then the way his ability to run the basketball floor, which is something he does better than Gobert, he can get up the floor like a gazelle. It's great to watch. And he could be part of, Lonzo throwing those things up, and the Brandon Ingrams, the advanced passes, or sealing in the paint. Generally those are guards back there if you run in the paint. All those little developmental things just to get a couple more points per game. Fouls, that's another way to get in the bonus. All that little stuff adds up and contributes and is big for a team. But if he is able to stick to his solid principles with whatever they are giving him, then I thoroughly believe Stan is the guy to put him exactly where he needs to be. Then I think he will be a force, especially off the bench, as somebody that's valuable to have moving forward, especially in the playoffs.
And that's huge for this team. They're lacking sort of, I mean, like I said, the guard position is very crowded, but the front court has been an issue, at least early on. We know Steven Adams off the floor, plus minus, isn't great. But if Jackson Hayes can adjust and learn to use that length, learn to get better in that pick and roll coverage, that could be huge. And
Yeah,
his touch has been awesome these last few games too, finishing at the basket. I think he had like a 10 or 11 footer last night jump shot. So yeah, we love to see that too.
He works on it, man. He's got the finesse. He's got the finesse and the reverses, and he thinks he's doing it. But he has fun with it. He does. He has fun with it, and so he can shoot free throws. He's not out to the 3-point line yet, but I don't think they need him out there. When you're a lob threat like him, hey, just hit that screen and take off. But you've got to roll hard. That was a big thing with him last year, was he would screen and stick, hit it and get off it, and it's a problem. So again, him, Nikhil, who are really close friends and really goofy guys. I'm proud of those guys with what they've been able to accomplish early on, and just keep going. Just keep going. Next step. Next play, next day, next game.
Now, one more question before we transition. I'm going to ask you just some general NBA questions before we let you go. But we've talked about all these additions, Steven Adams, Eric Bledsoe, Kyra Lewis. We didn't talk about Wenyen Gabriel very much, but he's a guy that I would love to see on the court here soon in the front court. Gave some trouble to Anthony Davis in the bubble. Hopefully he can shoot that corner three. But in reference to these new additions, Steven Adams, Eric Bledsoe, Kyra Lewis, are any of these guys types of players that make you say, whether you watch them or you've just heard good things about them, man, I wish I was coaching them right now. Man, I wish I could coach that guy. Is any of these new additions jump out to you like that?
I think you always want to be a part of any player's success, right? Or to try and help any of these guys get to the next step, get to the point in their career where they can make money and enhance themselves and their popularity and all that kind of stuff. I do think that this group, while it is a struggle and they have had some early struggles and everything, I do think it's a cool group to work with, all of them. And that's across the board. Again, this is a group of guys that you definitely root for, and you have a lot of respect for those guys. Like Brandon Ingram was awesome last year. As talented as he is, very, very quiet guy, but he's about ball, man. And he's high level. Zion's like the nicest kid. I mean, for a big time guy, he's awesome human being. Obviously Nikhil, my little brother, I spent a bunch of time with him, and again, the additions seem like good dudes. So you're always wanting to be a part of this, or whether it's here or somewhere else, as you watch some of the guys that you've seen, like Rondo is with my dad now in Atlanta. And so I'm sure they have ridiculous stories together with us being together a few years ago. And so, you're rooting for him there as well as dad in Atlanta. And then, we've got guys all over the league. Quinn Cook is the guy who's winning championships, who was my first ever point guard as a head coach in summer league. It's just those type stories are what you get in this for. It's not anything but just wishing the best for those guys and trying to see how you've helped them improve. And that's all over the league. There's a lot of guys doing a lot of good things. A guy like Jeremy Grant, I'm sure, is a guy who everybody roots for in Denver. And now he's averaging like nearly 30 or something. I mean, it's pretty cool to see how he's grown as a player. You see it everywhere. And, I'm just fortunate that I've been a part of this thing as long as I have. I mean, indirectly since birth, directly for 9 years or whatever it may be. And so I'm very fortunate where I am, just to be able to watch this game and be able to see these guys in a different way than most, and evaluate them in different ways than most, and just follow them throughout their deal, and hopefully this summer or whenever the opportunity presents itself, um, compete with them or against them, and that's part of this whole deal. And then afterwards, you saw it with Breeze and Brady last night. Hey, we're all part of this thing together. It's kind of a glorified fraternity with us. So um, it's cool, man. This has been, like I said, my time here was awesome with all these guys. It really treated me well. It treated my family well and everything. And just to see the shift and the new, sometimes you need the new. It's very much welcomed and everything. And I think they're in good hands. I really do. Stan has been one of the best. His commentating and analyst work was some of the most that I respected, to be honest with you, of all the guys that do it. And so you got a good one here. Got a good one. And I think Trajan and those guys will put together something, move some pieces around probably, see what they got. And, once this thing is built at the foundation, I think the Pelicans and the Pelican fans will have something that I can be very, very proud of.
Awesome. Well, one more question before we let you go, Jamelle. You were in the bubble. I'm assuming you've kept up to date with the protocols that are going on right now in the NBA in reference to COVID-19. We talked about it very briefly at the top of the podcast. What are your thoughts on how the NBA is handling stuff right now? I mean, I know there's been breakouts in several different teams. They're doing multiple tests a day. What do you do? I mean, I don't know how they go forward with this right now. Obviously, they have that 2-week sort of thing where they're not doing hugs or anything after games. But what are your thoughts on the protocols right now?
I was one of the guys who said they had no shot of figuring that there was no chance it was going to work. That was me up until this point. I just didn't see it. Like, I didn't see how the bubble made sense, and what they put together out there was unbelievable. All the people that were involved in that's unbelievable job. It's just so hard now with all the travel, the hotels, and then just people. People are everywhere and everything, and isolating guys in hotels and everything. Just, there's so much that goes on with the amount of games. We saw a couple of issues in the NFL, but they were able to make up games because they only played once a week. I don't know how they're going to make up all these games. Like, Phoenix just missed the whole week. I think Washington's having some issues. Philly's had some issues, or is still having issues. Dallas was down and out. So, how do you make up these games to where, everybody plays the same amount, where it's fair, where you have the standings that really matter. Some teams have easier schedules than others now because they've missed out on teams and all that kind of stuff. Just glad that's not my job to figure out how to get that done. But, the people up in New York, Adam Silver and all his staff, and all the people in the league office and all the medical professionals, the team doctors and everything, bravo for trying to put this thing together and give the fans something. Try to give them something from this sport that I think a lot of people missed and have been missing. We see some fans getting back in the stands and football and everything. And I heard about spiking again, and now things are changing. It's shifting every day. And so bravo to all the people who have to sit and grind the long hours and write all these protocols and type all this stuff up and get these people out and emphasize and the logistics behind it. It's just an unreal mountain to climb to keep everybody safe and healthy. So hopefully all the guys, the Karl Anthony Towns and Kleber and all the guys around the league get better soon. Hopefully all the family members of all these guys are healthy. Health is wealth these days. And so, just take care of yourself, man. It's a weird time we're living in that none of us will ever forget. So we'll see how it goes, and hopefully they're able to finish up, but it's really going to be a tall task.
He is Jamelle McMillan at Jamelle McMillan on Twitter, former assistant coach with the New Orleans Pelicans and the Phoenix Suns at one point in time. Jamelle, we're rooting for you. Hoping you get back on a staff next season. Very excited for that. Thanks so much for joining us today, man. This was really fun. Provide some awesome insight.
Anytime, man. Anytime. Love to talk hoops. If you guys want to hit me up on Twitter, man, I'm on there periodically. I'm on there, but email, I'm always up to talk ball, and I love it. But much love to you guys, all the fans and everybody. Again, please stay safe, stay healthy. And, we'll see what the Pelicans got here this week. Hopefully they can close out this road trip on a successful note, get back home and see what they can put together for the rest of the season.
Yes, sir. Jamelle, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Thanks.